So my name's Eric, Eric Milligan. I'm the primary owner of New Hampshire Mushroom Company. We're in Tamworth, New Hampshire. For reference, that's about, 15, 20 minutes south of North Conway. So 15, 20, south of the Whites. I consider it the Lakes region. So this will be year 13 in business. And what it started as and what it is now has completely changed. It's evolved every year that the farm has started. There wasn't, I think there was only maybe like 23 specialty mushroom farms in the country when we started. Don't quote me on that. I probably read it on the internet, so it's true, obviously. But I had heard there was like 900 now, which I think is absolutely awesome. I really do. I think that that's really, really great. And there's a lot of reasons why I think it's great. But I wanted to kind of, where it's a small group, maybe go around, because I can talk for an hour and a half about pretty much anything, and so I should probably stay on track. In my head, I just keep up. My next door neighbor, who owns the building and everything, had texted me a picture day before yesterday saying, I don't know what this is that popped up in my lawn. And it was a giant black morel about this tall. Always wait, something will come up on the lawn. And that's the first time they had come up there. And she ate them and they were good, because I spent hours on private walks trying to find them with people. They're like, we're gonna find morels this year. And we didn't, and there they are on the lawn whilst playing fetch with the dog. So I wanted to go around, get people's names and what brings you to the class, or are you a mushroom farmer? Do you want to be a mushroom farmer? I'd kind of like to do a Q&A where if you've got concerns or things, because a lot of what I like to talk about is the back end, the part that doesn't get addressed a lot of the times, where it's like, well, if I just grow the mushrooms and learn how to cultivate them, then the rest takes care of itself. In fact, that's probably one of the easier steps of the entire business process. And when I say evolved, it's because when I had started, there wasn't a lot of people doing it, and you couldn't go online or the internet to watch other people doing it. And so we got to fail new all the time. And so I like to answer questions for people that are starting out mushroom farming to say, here's this fan, because these ones don't work, or here's the humidification that I like to use. I mean, there were a couple of Chinese and Korean bottling line videos on the internet when I started. And so, but that also leads to a lot of different other things, because we had exponential demand in the beginning of the farm. And I wanted to take over the world with specialty mushrooms. But boy, it's a lot of work to grow, a few thousand pounds a week for, wholesale restaurants, farmers markets, and walk-in sales. Especially if a giant wholesaler decides they don't want to buy that 400 pounds this week because they're all set. There goes 6 months worth of margins, and you don't have the processing facility, so you're composting dollar bills. And then also considering restaurant industry. Pre-COVID, I was 95% sales in restaurants. I mean, a couple hundred, 272, I think, in 2016 or so. Restaurant sales are now less than 1%. And so who you sell to, who the market is, and that sort of thing. So we'll go around real quick. We'll go this way. I've known this guy for a whole long time. He's bought mushrooms off of me for a long time. I never remember his name, but I recognize his face.
Dave Daniels. I'm actually not here to learn how to grow them, but I'm here to pick your brain on all your other skills of foraging and chefing and cooking. And
yeah, someone called me a modern day Renaissance man the other day. I'm like, yeah, but I need an entourage thanks to the internet. They're like, yo, you have all these ideas. I got all these kind of ideas. They're like, what are you working on today? I'm like, I got this skin salve coming out that might help prevent a couple of different types of skin cancer and mitigate external maladies of HPV, and it's an over-the-counter sort of thing. But then working on some of the extract powder stuff. And then also what I was telling you about with the carbon sequestration and that. Yeah, he's been to the farm before. You've been to the farm before. There's always a lot of things going on there. So
in, and I grow some mushrooms outside, and then learn more.
Excellent. On logs or? And beds. Just some wild wine cap stropharia came up in Milan the other day too, which was pretty cool. And I like seeing the difference between what the wild stropharia is compared to like what the cultivated was. We had done some outdoor cultivated beds at the farm a couple of times just to play around, and they came up for a few years, but I never refed them. But you know, wine caps are a fun one to grow. So yeah, we'll go around. We'll just get names, and if you're a mushroom farmer or you want to be one, or that way I'll probably just talk about anything anyways, sorry. I go down lots of rabbit holes, and my rabbit has no idea how deep it goes. And so, well, I got that Neanderthal ADHD brain. I mean, if we're being chased by a lion later, you know, shoot me a text. Don't ask me to do your taxes. You know, I was looking at a P&L statement, a profit and loss statement the other day. Apparently, when numbers have parentheses around them, they're not just like hugging them, keeping them cozy. No. I was confused. I'm like, why are all those ones red with parentheses? Apparently, don't worry about it. Money's not real. It's like birds, flight attendants. It's the eyes, dead eyes. I go down lots of rabbit holes. I have a tendency to not finish a point, and if I don't or I start a story, just remember a keyword. Because there's a pretty good chance like a minute and a half later I'll forget what I was saying again and just holler out like, what was I talking about? Remember the keyword. You said Ricci. And sometimes I'll pull back, or sometimes, you know, that road, you know, we missed the exit and we'll cover it next time.
Name's Frank. Similar to this, done a little hobby, outdoor growing logs and beds. Just want to learn more about it and, and how it's organized, how it's organized.
Yeah.
I'm Joe. I help run a vegetable CSA in southern New Hampshire, and I'm trying to get the farm to integrate mushroom cultivation.
Sweet. Passively or directly? Actively. Awesome.
I'm trying. I'm just looking to learn how to do it.
Cool. We'll start in the back.
Jerry, my wife and I, Cecilia, are going to be starting a farm here in the next couple of years.
Awesome.
We have 25 acres in Dixmont that I'm going to be cutting an access road the next couple of, I'm going to say within 3 weeks, 4 weeks.
Nice. Indoor cultivation, outdoor cultivation?
Well, we're going to, the company I work for, we build shipping containers.
Nice.
Big hybrid ones.
Yep.
So we're going to be probably doing container for a while. And we're going to have an orchard, so there'll be outdoor stuff, but we're really interested in mushroom farming.
Awesome. You could probably answer all kinds of questions. You probably have a billion of them.
She's the expert. I'm the guy who just makes things happen.
So you're going to be fruiting in the shipping containers?
Yeah,
You're going to half bury them?
possibly.
We don't know. We want to.
That's why we're here.
Yeah.
I would at least half bury them 4 feet. Problem with the shipping containers is that you want to have that thermal mass underground, because when they're 8 foot wide, it's hard to maximize the amount of blocks you can put into a shipping container and still have enough movement that you're not causing a whole lot of labor. And then how you want your airflow inside of it. Go like, oh, well, we have a lot more room if we put all the shelves on one side. Well, it can end up frigging up how your air goes, because even though it's a rectangle or it's a cube shape, you want to fruit mushrooms as if it's outdoors, spherical in nature. And so you really want to have that. I mean, if we think about mycelium as a whole, I mean, we say fairy rings, mushrooms grows out radially. Well, it wants to grow out spherically. You know, look at liquid inoculants, that sort of thing, because it's points of contact on it. And so trying to mimic indoors. And so sometimes shipping containers like that. So if you don't have to move as much air by keeping that thermal mass of the ground, the issue with shipping containers is that vertically, because they're on ships, you can hold, 1 million pounds on top of it, but it's not rated for side pressures. Okay? So if you bury it completely, now you have the danger of it imploding on itself. And so you've got two solutions for that. One would be to half bury it 4 foot to get down below that frost wall. Two, before you put that frost wall in, run a simple geo-air system. Use the heat sink that already exists. For example, at my farm, I have for heating and cooling, I'm using external things. So my building's 5,000 square foot. I guess we'd say sport or store. You know, I fully sterilize. I started doing 2,200 5-pound bags a week in 2012. Now, how I'm doing it now is I'm doing some mixes and runs here, but I'm bringing in blocks from other mushroom growers. I buy blocks from Maine Cap and Stem. I get pellets from Cap and Stem. Nutfield Mushroom leases one of my grow rooms. Dreamstone, who's working the New Hampshire mushroom booth. I just helped him with some kings and fruited a whole bunch of chestnuts that gave to him to sell back to here. Profitability through collaborations. So at my farm for heat, I only have 2 air conditioners, 2 5-ton units. 5,000 square foot building, I can pump out about 60,000 pounds of fresh mushrooms a year. 6 grow rooms, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0.5, and 0. It's just how they got built. Except 0.0 went to a hemp vegetative room for a while, and now it's turning into a wood shop. Yeah, and 0.5 right now is filled with a bunch of what I call Civil War spalted maple that I've been harvesting turkey tails off from for years in the wood pile. I decided in the fall and September when they were done harvesting, oh shit, oops, they're filming, I probably shouldn't swear much. When daddy gets tired, he loses his big boy words. Swallow my tongue. I lecture a lot, so I gauge the level of crassness on a walk, you know, to figure out where we can go on it. Yeah, and grow room 1 now is a hemp drying room and trimming room and stuff like that. So I'll go back to why, because it led me to the geo-air thinking. So 4 of my grow rooms take over 100,000 cubic feet of air from outside per hour. And I cannot recycle that air because, as we know, mushrooms breathe out CO2 like you and I do. And I might have anywhere like 1,800 blocks in a grow room. And it's only 12 foot by 8 foot by 16 foot long. And I keep it at 57.8 degrees year round, like cold weather species. And most people will tell you I also pick them like 3 days early. And I do that on purpose. Because again, if you're producing mushrooms on a scale where you need to maybe have 3 weeks shelf life, you know, I do a whole bunch of consulting with mushroom growers where it's weird, where it's not a bass fishing tournament. Growing the biggest, heaviest, giant mushroom, beautiful bouquet of yes, that King Blue looks beautiful right now. Or pink oysters are beautiful. It's too bad it starts going bad 3 days before harvest and smells like hot low tide. I know, right? And so where your market is and that sort of thing. Well, here's the thing. In the wintertime, you know, those rooms are pulling in 100,000 cubic feet of air, and it might be -10. Yeah. Well, the building has radiant heat. So when you're incubating blocks, bags of saprophytic species, you deal in quarter-degree temperature changes in quarter days. So with radiant heat in my building, I know that my 14-foot high shelves, the temperature at the ceiling is the same as at the floor. And that way I can keep a stable temperature in my incubation. But then I disconnected one of the zones and built a closed loop 250,000 BTU heat exchanger that takes the waste heat, and as air's coming in, inside might be -10, 2,000 cubic feet a minute, hits that, it's coming out 93 degrees. And that's waste heat from a waste wood boiler, first generation boiler. But I burn about 40 cord of wood a winter. And I look around when I do that because I could tell who burns wood. I'm like, holy crap, that's like $500 a cord. Well, because it's a first generation wood boiler, I can burn anything. I can burn wet wood, soft, you know, dry wood, soft wood, de-tinseled Christmas trees. Like, if it's not painted or pressure treated, I'll burn it. And I have deals with the town, the state, and like 6 or 7 arborists that pay to get rid of wood. Don't pay to get rid of it. Drop it off here for free. So to buck, split, and stack, I'm about $40 a cord. Yeah. It's easier to warm it up than it is make it cold, especially when I don't have a chiller and I just have an AC. One 5-ton unit that does the whole incubation. CO2 is a bit high, but it can handle it at that stage. But again, the grow room's 100,000 cubic feet of air. Well, an air conditioner will blow out 38 to 41 degree air, which is kind of what you want based on your little heat sinks that you decide to put into a grow room. If the air going into that AC is like 70s, like under 70 and dry. Doesn't matter how many BTUs an AC is, it depends on the air going into it. And so, you know, the warmer and wetter, I mean, New England, if it's gonna be hot, it's gonna be muggy too. And now your grow rooms are getting warmer and warmer and warmer, which now increases the CO2 content and changes relative humidity. I lecture a lot on humidity because varying temperatures, it's your relative humidity. Like I set a room up last night, I just put blocks in there last night and I got it off at like 77% relative humidity based on what last night was doing. I also wanted to make it rain on them, but that's a whole other thing. Where was I 30 seconds ago? I don't want to lose that point. I got thinking about loading blocks, and I was like, oh shit, I got blues and black pearls to do when I get back, and they were supposed to be loaded like 3 days ago because they had 3 nights that are cold, and then I got warm again, so they're like, oh crap, that's what I was waiting for, you son of a bitch. We were, great, thanks for pulling that back. See, this one person, we haven't even got around the room for names yet. Everything's a big commercial for the next thing. I teach lots of classes. It's different every time. You know, the cool thing is just making up this crap on the spot. Well, the problem is how am I going to condition the air before it goes into my air conditioner? How am I going to take that heat and that moisture out of it? Coincidentally, at that same time, there was a natural spring up the woods that every time it would rain a lot would wash my driveway out. And at that point, compost that I had maybe had 500 yards of compost that had aged for 3 years. And in December, we grew green peppers like 4 or 5 inches tall in 5 days from seed. And started like, oh, I'll sell this. It's too raw now, so I trade it with a compost company for firewood, load for load, which is kind of nice. A guy named Don showed up and says, I'm a gardener, but I don't have enough room in my house. I want to garden a lot, and that compost is awesome. I think if you put a compost garden down in that culvert where that spring washes it out, all the roots will go down into the spring, and we don't have to water it as much. I'll do that. And so I built it. I mean, he had pumpkins, 7-pound beets. I did it one year and I went no-till. Yeah, I called it no-till. It means I planted a whole bunch of stuff and then looked at it in the fall. 55 different heirlooms. I planted 8 inches apart from each other. I was picking vine ripened tomatoes in November, crawling around like a rabbit because the heat kept everything from frosting. That was the same year where no one had tomatoes in the neighborhood because tomato blight came through. Wiped out everyone's tomatoes. We had one plant that had blight starting, and I crushed up a fresh block of Hypsizygos almarium, the true elm, which looks like a white creamy oyster, but it's got some funk on it. It's like the lamb of the mushroom world. Hypsizygos species don't have decurrent gills, yet this does. And it's funky, like it'll fruit on grow rooms every once in a while. Like, oh, it's humid in here, I'm gonna grow out of the corner of a room. It also 100%, almost 98.8% bioremediated OSB. If anyone knows what OSB is, chipboard plywood. Yeah, completely ate it, which was kind of neat. I'm going back to tell you how I cool a damn building, because underneath this garden, I dug a trench 150 foot long, 20 foot wide, 20 foot deep, and put in 2,000 feet of plastic irrigation line, filled it with non-tox, because I worked it at a marina, a couple of pumps, a couple of expansion tanks, and 400,000 BTUs worth of heat exchangers. Basically what it means, well, I'm in a boulder field, so glaciers like coming down it bumps into Mount Washington and gets held up for a minute, chips the top off, and then starts gaining speed again and runs right into the Ossipes, which is a 9-mile ring dike. And so I'm north of that. I'm in a boulder field. I'm at 52 degrees year round. I hit groundwater at like 18 inches. I get almost a 17, because I'm trying to take that heat and that moisture out of the air before it goes into my air conditioner. And I get between 17 and a half and 20 and a half degree drop, which means if it's 90 degrees out and 95% humidity, the air going into my air conditioner is never more than mid 60s and dry. And the whole system runs on 81 watts of electricity. Yeah. Geo Air. Read a book called Citrus in the Snow, where I got the idea from. There's a guy in like Nebraska, and he grows oranges year round with a simple inline fan and a ducting that went under it. So utilize heat sinks, especially if you're in the shipping containers, using what you've got to your advantage there. Not to mention they're watertight and, you know.
Well, the ones that we make are hybrids, so they're made out of composites, not steel. So it's not gonna rot.
Nice. They don't have to seal and all that stuff. Perfect. Yeah, look at what your side rating is. They'll give you side ratings on the weight, how much weight you go. Your other option, too, is to do either an earthen or a concrete foundation where you have an air gap.
Yeah.
With like ICF and then aggregate in between.
Yeah, but you have anywhere from a 6 to a 24-inch gap in between. So now you have that air curtain. Because I think every inch of air is like an R value of, God, my brain hole says 6, but it might be 3.
I think it's built like 3, but yeah, you're right.
18 to 26.
Something like that. Enough that you could walk around in there and have it be tight, you know? And then throw up some lights in that gap and just grow some reefer in there. There's no money in cannabis. No. No. I do cultivate hemp at the farm because I'm in New Hampshire and they have no cannabis policy. And so I have to follow, it's legal to grow hemp in all 50 states. And so I follow USDA law, which is $50 for my license every 5 years.
That's it?
Yeah. Keep a clean record. And I can have THCA and things like that, but I didn't focus on that. We had CBG, CBD, CBN. But I also teach to thousands of people a year, too. And they all come to my house, my building, and it's New Hampshire, so having giant flowering cannabis plants on my driveway is an awesome conversation piece. The amount of times I got turned into the cops, that mushroom grower up the street's growing that reefer. No. And they're like, no, I know, he showed me, and everything. Actually, it makes it so I'd have to explain to customers why my t-shirts smell that way. When people are studying, or when people come in and they're learning about fungi for the first time, I mean, literally tens of thousands of people, I get to tell them the juicy stuff, that their first introduction to mycelium and fungi and stuff by seeing the building and going out into the woods. And I've been working on a lecture on the thing, because I also have the academia side, because I talk a lot much on IDing and foraging and stuff, and one begets the other. By really getting out there in nature and knowing what the species and feeling the environment of what like genus in that genus like and do, it's easier to replicate indoors. And then by literally seeing tens of thousands of pounds of oysters and lion's mane and that stuff indoors, it kind of give you a better sense of what to find outside. In between the two camps, when I first started, it was a huge juxtaposition, you know, between especially cultivation of mushrooms to sell and then learning about mycology side of things. And they're getting closer and closer and closer and closer. So I've got a thing I'm working on called Bridging the Gap, where it really does intertwine, just like mycelium would do or mushroom would do on the thing. All right, there's probably like 3 things I didn't finish and lots I want to talk about. Let's get around the rest of the room. Sorry, go ahead.
Hey, I'm Josh. Just curious about mushroom farming. I've done some personal cultivation and
Yep.
just maybe scaling up a little bit.
Cool. One thing I talk with a lot of people too on scaling up, when say you're starting in like a garage or a basement or like a shed or things, and you want to jump up to either a commercial level or going from part-time to full-time. I've personally known 4 or 5 mushroom growers that they started that way and then went to like, I started in the warehouse. I started in that bigger 5,000 square foot building. And so I have a different sort of experience with it. in trying to transition from going from like a basement or thing to the larger size is where most of them fail. The whole different philosophy behind it changes. I was actually talking with Tyler about it. He's like, oh, well, I run this test or anything. I'm running like 8 bags a week. And I'm like, well, I'm gonna do a test where I'm gonna do a minimum of 100 bags because I'm not gonna get the idea on it. You know, it might be a lot of capital up front, but I've got to get that answer on it. Well, if he's got an issue with contamination, he contaminated 8 bags. I fully sterilize now. If I made a mistake on sterilizing, you know, I just now contaminated, you know, 300 bags, 1,500 pounds of substrate. And when you get into having employees and that sort of thing, or having a huge amount of product where you might not sell out, it's that transition, and it's just things to be conscious of, the whole back end of it. So.
My name's Erica. I have property in Booth Bay, an hour and a half from here, and I'm just starting to learn about mushrooms. I inoculated some logs last summer with shiitake plugs, and I've got wine caps I'm going to use in the garden. And I'm just looking at ways to diversify and have just, figure out streams of income. And so I was thinking about maybe, exploring the idea of mushrooms. I guess primarily like outdoor growing. I don't know if I'm up to like the big investment of the indoor setups and stuff maybe. So.
Passively growing on logs and things, doing it as an adjunct to a farm or something that's small where when you have it, it's great. Yeah. I know some farmers that just do outdoor on like say shiitake logs, and they may have several thousand logs. But here's the thing, like shiitakes really want to grow in like the beginning of August, and now you've got like 100 people cultivating shiitakes on logs, and they're all ready at the same time. In August, when indoor shiitake cultivation, all the temperatures go up, and now stuff's cranking out, and there's a huge inflow. When there's lots of logs, you get a tarp, time it, soak in that thing, and be really on a regiment, which is a lot of labor. However, having passive logs out in the woods there, but not just shiitakes, those are the ones that are available, but let some lion's mane, turkey tail, a whole bunch of different ones, reishi, and that way they're all gonna like it. Chestnuts do well on logs as well. I lived on Southport for 2 summers. Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and I haven't been out there since I got into mushrooming, that out on Southport in the center part that no one ever goes to, I bet you there's a lot of shants out there. Probably a lot of chanterelles. Okay. So if you could check that, just like shoot me a text real quick. There's Southport Island. You know what I mean? Listen, my time management sucks, and I loved having a swing bridge, right, for the sailboats to go through. I'd be like a half an hour late and be like, God, I got caught by the bridge, and no one ever questions it, which is great. But I rode my motorcycle around, like never registered it, barefoot. I knew people in Booth Bay Harbor. I worked at the Southport General Store. Yeah. You'd have billionaires and lobster fishermen in the same day. It's one of my favorite places in the world to go. Anyway, so cool. I was thinking about the islands. 8 miles, you get really drunk, and so you can drive around the 8-mile circle the fastest. Yeah, the town cop was the winner, and he did it in a Gator, John Deere Gator. But I'm not gonna have alcohol. It makes me really flush and make bad decisions. No hard drugs. So anyway, we'll almost make it around the room. Go ahead.
Hey, my name is Stanis. So I live in Connecticut since kind of have a hobby of cultivating chicken on logs. I like all kinds of mushrooms, and for a long time didn't have a chance to have a farm, but in the future I kind of see it coming. I like to learn more about economics because to grow is one thing, but what's next?
Just like knowing how, like if you're outdoors foraging, like knowing the habitat you're in is just as important as knowing the genus of mushroom that you might be looking for. Like I went out looking for black trumpets today, and I went down into the pine barrens, didn't find a single thing. He's laughing because he must forage. And you would never find a black trumpet at the Pine Barrens. God, there was a link between what you said and that. Knowing the habitat was important. Knowing your market and knowing where things would go is pretty much also as important. You know, yeah, sure, cultivate the mushrooms, but where are they going to go? Who is your primary salesperson? I don't recommend trying to do wholesale restaurants and farmers markets all at once. If you're small and you're doing, say you're doing under like 500 pounds and less a week, direct retail, farmers markets, walk-ins, that sort of thing. Anything over 1,000 pounds, 1,500 pounds to 2,500 pounds a week is like the next range of what you can do. What I'm doing is gauging how many pounds you can produce based on like the amount of capital you put into a certain amount of equipment that you would need. So for example, if you're doing it with small equipment, doing small batches, you know, for a couple of people, probably 400 or 500 pounds a week, realistically. And then if you're gonna do 1,000 pounds or 1,500 pounds a week and more, you're gonna need to have a larger set of machinery to justify doing that and the labor and stuff that goes into it. And then there's one more step above that, which is, you know, the $1 million bottling lines or bagging lines, and you have wholesale clients. After 13 years of doing it, I think the highest amount of profit margins is doing it on the smallest scale. You know, if you've got just a couple of people, you know, it's a family thing or some friend things and you do it as small and you have a couple of farmers markets. Well, I sold out, that's awesome. You didn't compost 300 pounds that week. You know, if you have a situation where you get up to that next level, you also need to have a line of producing value addeds. That way you're never gonna lose that fresh mushroom. You know, after doing 13 steps at the cultivation part, why get to the end and then throw it away? That's why you need to have a long time. So when I harvest mushrooms, one, I do pick the substrate off the bottom because I want to do what the mushroom wants to do. And if there's still a lot of substrate on the bottom, the fruit body is under the assumption that an angry bear just knocked it off the tree and says, I'm going to continue to try to finish growing to put out spores. Especially if it's not put into, say, a walk-in cooler that's 34 degrees or less. Above 34 degrees, it's like, well, it's just a chilly night. I'm gonna make a lot of spores now and put them all on the inside of this box. And if I'm a black pearl or a true elm oyster, I got about 3 days at 38, and thank you for putting in this brand new tree. Oh, these are moldy. Nope, that's aerial mycelium. Oh, it's stuck to the box. Nope, it's eating it for lunch. You know, I get asked, well, why do you harvest them so early? Well, I harvest them early, one, because, you know, I've got a sellable 35 days on lion's mane, 45 days on king oysters without loss of that. Harvesting a mushroom when the transfer of energy goes from putting nutrients and water into the fruit body for girth, transitioning over to spore production. And especially if you're a home grower or a garage grower or a basement grower, that's the other time I see a lot of people go out of business. They try to upscale, and now the dog and mom and Grammy that came over that had polio and was in an iron lung until she was 11, now all have pneumoaryngii, Pleurotus aryngii, king oyster, spore lung, pneumonia symptoms from that, yeah. If I'm picking like 600 pounds of king oysters, I've got to put a mask on. Or that Hypsizygus, I've got to put a mask on. I also live at my farm. And so I have a sensitivity to those spores now. So I have to consider that. Why do you want to have all those spores? Try to mimic what a mushroom wants to do in the wild. See, if I put it at 34 degrees, now it's going to be like, ooh, it's freezing. I need to go dormant. Wait for it to warm up before I take this remaining moisture that I have in my substrate. See, the water that's in the fruit body, it's coming from that block. It's coming from your log. It's not coming from the rain. It's not coming from the mist in a grow room. That's the environment in which the substrate is going to put moisture into that fruit body. And when I'm doing tours, people are like, oh, you have a mushroom farm, you're a farmer. I'm like, yeah, I'm a farmer, but I don't grow anything. I'm a decomposer of things. So I cultivate mushrooms for a living, but I run a marketing company. Because everyone wants to know about mushrooms. And the more you talk about them, the more you gotta disguise yourself when you're trying to get groceries. Yeah, or I don't go hiking at like the big white mountain places, because I have a basket, and I'm a big dude carrying a wicker basket. And I have no problem with that. But like people are like, he that mushroom guy. And all of a sudden now I got like 40 people behind me, and I'm like, beep, 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 beep. What's this big red mushroom? Will you tell me about medicinal mushrooms? Do you have some magic mushrooms? No, no, no. You know, that sort of thing. The grocery store. Oh, just a second, let me show you when it was one on my lawn. Here, let me just, okay, those are my grandkids. I'm like, dude, I just want to buy some dude wipes and some cottage cheese. I want a steel bag. I'm at Dollar General. I'm here because I needed something, and I'm gonna steal your paper bags. What? You haven't caught on yet? That's the entire talk, man? I prepped on the way here. It was an hour and 10 minutes. I brought the syllabus for the New Hampshire Mushroom School. Yeah, the person wrote the whole damn thing, and I read through the syllabus on that. I'm like, this is really good. There's a lot of words here. This makes a lot of sense. And Karen looks at me and she goes, you're such an idiot. I'm like, why? She goes, they're all your words. I just have to put them in a format that other people will understand. I just want to pique your interest, you know? I get to give you the fluff of the dust of the snow that fell on the iceberg that night. Again, I'm probably a little drunk. Vodka so you don't smell it. I'm kidding. Now you made me go down the rails. God, his fault, everybody. I was gonna make another point. It was really the key to success. Let's go, okay, yeah, we'll make introductions. I know you wanted to meet the last 4 people. Yeah, okay, go ahead.
Hey, my name's Ryan, I'm from Tampa, Florida. Just curious about growing, and I have a small space, I live in an apartment. I have a pet, so keeping things sterile is a big one for me. So yeah, just here to be curious and soak things up.
In Tampa, so hot and humid all the time. Airflow, airflow, airflow. Thing I've been consulting on a lot is a lot of guys that were running the room dynamics on CO2. My sensors are 13 years old. I think the CO2 stopped reading correctly in year 4. They were so high-tech out of Korea. And just ordering them in, like I needed to hire a translator, and I needed like a writ of Congress and like shipping labels and things from like 14 different countries to get them in. But they're the same sensors from 13 years. We built these sort of relay computers that cost me several $1,000s each, and those all essentially do like what a $75 Inkbird does. Works great. One of my grow rooms is on an Inkbird. I run hydrofoggers, which I can't stand. They're good for wet rooms like shiitakes or hen of the woods or that sort of thing. They get dirty really quick. In my grow rooms, I run high pressure mist because I can get 1 micron no matter if it's 60 degrees in there or 50 degrees. Hart Environmental. The guy's named Brian or Ben. I've called him both for like a decade, and he knows that. I do it all the time. I had a guy who was doing an employee review for 6 months, and I'm like, listen, as your boss, is there anything else I can do to like make your stay here a little bit better? He's like, well, maybe one thing. He goes, I've been working here for 6 months, and you've been calling me Sean. I'm like, yeah? He goes, my name's Cody. You sure? Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's because we have another Cody that works here and I don't want to confuse you two. He goes, you don't call him Cody either. He goes, everyone calls him Conrad. Well, that's the one that stuck for 6 months. I called that kid a different name that started with C every day. He was Cheryl, Clarice. Yeah. The day I call them Constantinople, bad. That's a lot of syllables. It's a lot of syllables to call somebody. Anyway, go ahead.
Ryan from North Dakota, same thing, just getting into this really. I only have apartments, not a lot of space to do anything.
So let's do these ones too quick. We'll pull back on the keyword about markets and what you could produce. With the sidebar question, how much am I willing to invest and how much of my time am I willing to invest? Because if you're doing it on a small scale and you got like say 10 blocks, 15 blocks, 20 blocks, well great, now I'm just managing that. But now I'm doing 1,500 pounds a week or 2,000 pounds a week and it's Christmas Eve and I'm supposed to go to some stupid kids concert where everyone's dressed like icicles and things. I don't know what kids do. They want to eat like every day. They grow slower. Yeah, I'm not married, I don't have kids, and I sleep 3 hours a night, so jump on board. Basically how much time, like at that range, like it's Christmas Eve and you've got 600 pounds of kings to pick because tomorrow they're now valued enough. They're more like chestnut mushrooms. You know, you got a 4-hour window on chestnut mushrooms to pick them between a 4 or 5 day shelf life and a 14-day shelf life. It's the nature of what Foliotas want to do. They're a secondary decomposer, and so they'll operate a lot like a fall mushroom, that sort of thing. Let me go back to CO2 for a second. The one I lost came back to me. Running all your things on what CO2 we're outputting is a little bit hard for me to understand because if you think about relative humidity, always move the most amount of fresh air possible while still remaining your temperature and your relative humidity. Faster air is drier. So my sensors are not that, and I think Far West Fungi carries it. I know that Mousam Valley, way back in the day, John, he engineered it. The best thing to keep your relative humidity how you'd want it, your sensor would be a wet bulb, dry bulb hygrometer. Because that's going to give you your relative humidity no matter what the temperature and the humidity coming in. Because with mushroom cultivation, you're going to have, like especially in North Dakota, Tampa's going to be hot all the time, and you get a few seasons where you don't have to worry about it so much, but you're going to get spikes. You know, oh wow, it was 60 for a week, and now it's 85, which is still sweater weather. But if I'm down there, that's like swimming in the ocean. I'm sweating to death weather. I got those Neanderthal genes, yeah, something like that. But North Dakota, now you got 12 seasons. You know, you got your 4 that are normal, but then you have your 12-week cusps on either side. And so really, moving as much air as possible all the time. Unless you're trying to modify king oysters and that sort of thing to get longer stem, longer stipes and that sort of stuff. And you can also, you know, change cap diameters and color variations based on the color spectrum and the amount of lumens. See, in my grow rooms, I have full spectrum grow lights in there. That way they get a little bit more vitamin D. You know, that way I don't have to like pass them under lights to get like vitamin D in them and all that sort of thing. Plus fluorescent makes me feel yucky. Anyway, we're almost there, everybody. We're the last table. Going ahead.
I'm Chrissy, I'm from the Bahamas. So the only resource that's not limited is humidity and heat. So that's gonna be a fun challenge of moving home and trying to figure out
Are you gonna generate blocks? Are you gonna bring blocks in? Are you gonna cultivate on blocks, passively outdoors, indoors? I'm thinking about what your natural resources that you could use in regards to dead organic matter.
Right, like we don't really have logs, any trees that we have are just like.
Is there, in agriculture, is there bagasse? Is there sugar production in the Bahamas?
Not anymore, no. Only thing we used to produce is pineapples. Not much farming, so.
Yeah. So having what your base substrate, think about that. Because if you've got to bring it in, that's going to add a whole big cost. Finding a source in the Bahamas, you know, that might be, you know, a big rub in the beginning to figure out. That might be a critch that is going to kind of set down the thing. Because just like mushroom mycelium wants to grow it spherically, solutions in mushroom cultivation also happen spherically. It comes back to that perishability and intermittent. You know, things have to change on the dime. You kind of have to go with the flow, but know what was happening 12 weeks ago and what's happening 12 weeks from now with all of the mitigating variables that might change along the way. When starting a mushroom farm, you want a minimum of 12 weeks working capital. Minimum. And I'll explain why, because if you're cultivating them, right, well, you have to buy all your consumables, your bags, your substrate, your fuels, your energies, your labor, spawn, produce all of those bags, and now they're gonna colonize from 9 days to, well, shiitakes, 65 days. They're all sitting on a shelf. So let's just call it an oyster. So now we're 2 weeks. So we did the production. Let's call it 7 days later, they're now on the shelf. Let's call that a month. So now we're at 4 to 5 weeks. Then they're gonna take 9 to 13 days to grow. Let's call it 2 weeks because they're all gonna be fruiting on the same time. So now we're at 4 weeks. Okay. Well, now you have a 3-week shelf life. You wanna sell them all in 1 week. Let's meet in the difference and call it 2 weeks. Okay, so now we're at 6 weeks. Call it 7 because now you're into the next week. But you delivered to restaurants, right? It's a 1-week delivery. Took you 1 week to bill them, now we're at 8 weeks. And if you don't put 30-day term limits, restaurants will pay you about 120 after you call them 40 times. So if you do get paid in that 1 month, so you have all of that money up front and all of that production that needs to occur before you see a penny back. And that's, and that makes sense. If that's why on a smaller scale, doing full retail at farmers markets, you're getting cash in hand that day. The amount of time that you spend chasing money, the larger you get selling wise, it's just minutes of the day. In 2000, I've changed things up the last 2 years because a profitable model now exists. Being able to purchase substrate blocks with great yields and no contamination. Think about your workforce. When you go up to the 1,000 pounds a week, now you got picking, composting, loading, production that happens every day. In 2016, I had 16 full-time people and 4 part-timers because I only had a plus minus of a half a day on production, or that 12-week before and after gets all frigged up. Well, anything over 5 employees, on average, 3 to 4 aren't gonna show up. Production doesn't stop because someone had a thing. And when that thing is like, we're going ice fishing with the boys, that sort of stuff. Yeah, I did the math once on how much I was paying a week for people to poop. $276. That's shitty. That is not good. That's a low-hanging fruit joke. Don't even laugh at that. You get points. An angel just lost its wings. That's what I say in the walks. Everyone's like, are you a fun guy? Like, oh my God, that's the first time I heard that today. Angel just lost its wings. What? Don't worry. My mom watches A Wonderful Life and they get 1 half wing back. She starts in September. You get a quarter wing if it's a Hallmark movie. The Hallmark movie, there's like 400, it's all the same movie. I was a doctor that moved back to my hometown. Found my high school sweetheart. Oh my God, she doesn't have 4 kids yet. Sorry. I studied theater in college. I went 4 years before I realized this is not the face of leading roles. I get to do a lot of things because I do, the farming part, but then I teach wilds, but then I do you eat the food before? Do cooking stuff, teach people to cook mushrooms, because one of the big things is like having the cannabis on the apron. People are afraid of wild mushrooms. Don't touch the wrong one, it'll kill you. No, not at all. There are so many more toxic plants and trees and things. But we're kind of raised to, be afraid of things that we don't understand or be real angry at them. And so obviously being afraid of a plant too. Also getting around people's minds that they're more animal-like. 700 million years. So when I'm teaching cooking, I teach people to cook them as if they're animal proteins. You know, if it was 13 years ago and I stood here and said, what's a lion's mane mushroom? Not a single hand would go up. Everyone here know what a lion's mane is? Yeah? It took me 2 years to get anyone to eat it. That's one of them snowball-looking pastries you need a glass of milk and you choke to death on, right? Remember them snowballs? You know, you got that little yarmulke marshmallow thing on the top, covered in the worst coconut shreds, cut the roof of your mouth worse than Captain Crunch. Well, I'm a 90s kid. Yeah, that was a special treat, snowballs. I specifically started growing it because, well, one, I liked it and I wanted to have a medicinal benefit, but in a lot of restaurants that were seafood restaurants, not great vegetarian menus. Like, oh, we're having lobster and steak tonight, yay. And they're like, yay, I'll have the pasta with red sauce, I guess, and ketchup. I'm like, no, listen, now this has the texture of crab or has the texture of whitefish. Make the same dish that you would, but use this mushroom in place of it. Tell people it's a mushroom. Yes, it's got the texture. I'm not trying to trick you into thinking like, hey, it's crab. But no, it has that flavor profile and texture profile that you might be looking for. King oyster scallops. People are like, that's a scallop. No, it is not. You know, we get a lot of people where it's a husband and wife that come on the phrase. It used to be called the Can You Eat It class. Now it's called the Food and Forage because I talk about all the different species. It's important to know, like, all right, these are the ones you don't want to look for because it's not, for me, it's not about the eating of it and for people in the foraging. But you get like a husband and wife and like she forages, but he hates mushrooms. The weekend, they're going to Oak Island the weekend after they're going to find treasure. Or we get a lot of hiking couples where like one could care less if they get to the summit and they want to forage and the other one just wants to go, so they'll meet halfway. I got a t-shirt with a sloth on it carrying a basket. It says Mycological Hiking Club. We might not get there. Right? Well, the guy who's like, I hate mushrooms, but my wife dragged me here. I'm so glad you had food that didn't have mushrooms in it. Really? What'd you like? That chicken sandwich. Yeah, that was chicken in the woods. You know, well, at least the pulled pork. No, that was king oysters. Dessert, you know, dessert had 5 species in it. Yeah, poor man's cheesecake. So I do a pecan sandy, you know, crust, but you do the butter in it. But I might use, I'll use porcini a lot, powder, because it'll have that nuttiness. I've used a couple of different things. Matsutake. Yeah, make a matsutake butter. Clarify, I go pound for pound, mandolin slice on the matsu, save the butter, use it in pie crust, it's the best thing. So matsutake smells like cinnamon, red huts, and dirty feet. They squeak when you cut them.
I love it. Yeah.
They can sell for like $700 a pound in Japan, everybody. And I could pick thousands of pounds in the spots that I go to. I picked 8 pounds last year. Now, granted, classes started on June 30th, 55 people at our first food and forage event. And from there until the 3rd week of September, every person in every class, whether I went out, taught somewhere, or had a class at the farm, and it was every Friday night forage, people went home with at least 1, sometimes 2 meals worth of choice edibles. Which is pretty cool, and they're all still alive, which is also better. I needed to learn that stuff, you know? I mean, technically, I sold wild mushrooms illegally for 9 years. Wild mushrooms is not an approved food source in New Hampshire. So you're selling to restaurants or grocery stores, that thing, it needs to be approved foods. I had a local rep come in because the person with the market said, well, go talk to him. Wrote a bill, passed law. Now you can be a licensed commercial harvester of mushrooms in the state of New Hampshire. Yeah, I just want to make my mom proud. Look, Ma, your college dropout son wrote law. I did the same thing. I published in a scientific journal. I didn't write a word. You know when you get a paper and you like read the abstract, you're like, I read that paper. I did, a UVM grad student was trying to deal with like toxic levels of algae bloom in Lake Champlain because like Vermont smells like cow shit. Pennsylvania does too, but too much. The fungal aspect of decomposition is not being addressed. And you have all these digesters and things, which are really awesome for the, let's trap that methane and everything. And we have this protein-rich, fluffy bedding material from the digester waste, which goes in as bedding for the same cattle that pooped it the first time. So we did experiments adding spent food waste, because like 40% of food in the country goes to waste, compost, and spent digester waste as an amendment to the substrate. I did all the experiments at the farm and did all the data, and then he wrote the paper and it got published, and I put it up on the wall. Like, there you go, Mom. I actually taught a wine class, Stropharia, how to cultivate wine cap Stropharia mushrooms outdoors in beds at Harvard. And I had never done it before, and I'm teaching a class on how to do it. Yeah, I just used some cardboard boxes and like our row bags, like a bag of Spawn, and we did it in a tap sink. Do you know that I told that story last summer, and the person was just graduating from Harvard, and there's still wine cap Stropharias coming up in the beds at Harvard, which is pretty cool. It kind of tastes like what, port wine and potato? I don't know, I don't eat mushrooms, they're gross. Like dirt's butt. The interest for me isn't the eating part. And plus I have a huge sensitivity, live at the farm. So I only taste the subtleties, like chicken in the woods tastes like flowers to me. I taste compost and like how much shiitake juice do you want to eat? Lion's mane, that's all gone metabolic. Ugh. Lion's mane juice, anyway. God damn it, dude, we're gonna get to you. We're going to you right now.
How you doing?
Awesome.
Good to see you.
I've met this guy before.
I'm Dave, and I live up in the northwestern mountains of Maine, and I've been foraging for about 17 years.
He knows Matsutakis then.
Got
a lot of fur there too, so he probably picks lots of shit around.
Generally, and I got pictures on my phone of them that are, they're huge.
I bet you I could tell you, I asked this guy right here if he thinks chaga's going extinct. He'll have an answer for me, and I know the answer. Northwestern Maine, what do you get, like 5 to 7 per acre almost?
And I refuse to sell them. I eat them.
I buy from one person who's is a harvester.
Yeah, once you find them and you know what they are, you mentioned they squeak. They don't.
Oh, Matsutakis, yeah. You gotta pick them with a screwdriver.
They're absolutely.
You have to get underneath them and plop them out. So, pine mushroom, in New Hampshire, it's under hemlock in podosylic soil. You see a tree tipped over and you see like rocks and gravelly. It's glacier shake. It's just ground up glacier. So hemlock lined stream with this gray silty soil, not a lot of ground cover. What induces them to fruit is 46 degrees air temperature.
Silt layer about it. It's actually clay that doesn't have any binder, and it'll be between 1/2 inch and 2 inches thick, and it'll be just below the surface of the duff. Once you find that, it's very gray, it looks like blood, but once you find that, start looking around, and you'll notice just a little hump here, and a little hump there.
Mushroom humps. I've brought people out before, and I'm like, man, there's Matsu's everywhere. They're like, I don't see a damn one. I'm like, see that leaf over there? Yeah. See how it's rounded? Go look underneath it. That brings me to a pretty good point, because there's a lot of things on the internet now, and you might read about like mycorrhizal species being cultivated, and oh my God, they're cultivating Matsutakis in Japan. Well, a couple of things. I stopped going online IDing mushrooms for people on like websites and things. I have hundreds of people that have my cell phone because they took a class, and I confirm mushroom IDs for people 7 days a week. Living customers buy things longer, and no one's dead yet. One dude's in a coma. People pop out of them all the time. I'm sorry, I got to. Imagine if you woke up from a coma this morning from like 4 years. You're like, Jesus, I miss anything? I know about 30 seconds, you're like, put me back, tuck me next to Walt and Ted. You get bonus points if you laugh at that one. My mom will write you a check. I'm not sure why I'm looking at my phone. It's 11:30. I don't know how long I'm supposed to talk for. Did I go over probably? 11:45. Oh, no shit. Sometimes on the Friday night forages, I'm like, oh, I'm sorry, everybody. Like, I probably should cancel these classes now because it's getting dark out there, 5 to 7. And they're like, no, you're fine. I'm like, well, no, it's dark. They're like, it's 8:45. But there's 30 people on the walk and no one noticed. So that's pretty cool. All right, 45 seconds ago. Where the hell was I? Because it was going to make a lot of sense. What's that? Oh, for Matsutakis, thank you. Jesus. There are 6 grades of Matsutakis. In Asian countries, they want number 1s, which are when it's in its phallic most state and it's small and the cap is completely covered. As it comes up, there's a veil. If the veil is not broken, it's a 2. If the veil is broken, it's a 3. If the veil is gone but the cap's enrolled, it's a 4. If the cap is flat, it's a 5. If the cap is upturned, it's a 6. They want number 1s. Well, they're under the duff a lot and you can't see them. Well, the internet thing. I stopped IDing mushrooms in 2016 or with armchair identifiers or looking at what other mushroom growers were doing to change or reinvent the wheel, thinking I was doing things wrong. Got to experiment with stuff and fail at it a lot, which I've done. Got an email last week. I'm like 3 failures away from being nominated. Yeah. That didn't work today. That worked yesterday. God damn it. I'm working on that joke. Depends on the group. The debate about how to pick a mushroom in the woods in the wild, whether or not you cut it with scissors or just pull it out of the ground. Apparently that debate is still happening today. It's ridiculous to me. It's the fruit body. Does an apple die when you pick it off the apple tree? No. If you use a chainsaw to cut the tree down and then pick the apples, now you've destroyed the habitat. So if all of these Matsutakis are under sometimes 8 to 6 inches, I'm frigging the guy up in the camera. I'm sorry, I'll stand here. If it's under like 6 inches of duff, well, Jesus, we'll just take big giant rakes and rake down the whole side of the mountain and now we can see them all. Well, now you've destroyed your habitat. So 50 years later, you start putting giant tarps and making grow rooms over the side of the mountain and making conditions in such that the Matsutake want to fruit again, and all of a sudden now you're cultivating Matsutake? No, you're just trying to bring it back. So respecting Mother Nature and making sure of those things. And that's kind of where that debate had come from, which is neat, huh? It doesn't matter how a mushroom's picked. I mean, morels you want to do with a knife because it's going to, frig up all of that, and then, black trumpets, scissor them in the field because, boy, try to clean them, they're all sandy, that sort of thing. As we wrap it up, and I want to be able to answer questions, if people have questions specifically, I'll try to answer. Succinctly isn't a word, but you understand what I mean by it? Succinct, effectively. That too, yeah. There are things to consider when starting a mushroom farm is, one, how much money are you willing to invest and draw that line? How much time you're willing to invest. If you want to do it full time and you want it to be successful, expect the unexpected. And expect to work 7 days a week. And how much you're willing to sacrifice. Will you sacrifice weddings, birthdays, funerals, that sort of thing? Because they're like 1,000 pounds a week or more if you're the boss. Something's going to happen. Something breaks every single day of the week. And so you just got to go with that flow. Kind of think like mycelium. Think quadratically, like following a choose your own adventure book and you see the whole book at once. You got problem A, solution Z, but you got all those mitigating letters that are in between. You got 13 steps on block cultivation. Well, you frigged up step 1, but not 100% frigged it up. So what changes do you need to make going down the line? Or last week, it just decided to be like 38 degrees and windy for 3 days in May. Well, that just made me a plus minus 3 days. So bags coming out of the lab, well, now where are they going to go? Because those weren't ready to go into a grow room. Now the one in the grow rooms are 3 days behind because it got cold and now they slowed down. So now my production's frigged up because nothing has a spot to go. And those are the things of knowing once down the thing. Or, boy, we have a plus minus on production of the week and, Christmas is on a Saturday and New Year's is on a Saturday this year, and that's our production day. and employees are gonna have holidays off. So did you just frig up 2 weeks worth of production? What happens if you're cultivating like 2,000 pounds a week and then the world closes? What did I do during COVID? I had 12 weeks of mushrooms incubating and every restaurant was closed. I donated over 10,000 pounds of mushrooms that year. And what I did cultivate sold for like $5 a pound. I also kept 5 employees busy and in work. And it was December 24th where we were doing a mix. And I said, you know, you guys ought to be glad that you like have employment and your paychecks have cleared and we're still trying to make ends meet. And all 4 of them in the mix said, oh yeah, it's really awesome. We make like $300, $400 a week here. I would have made $900 if you fired me. And I said, Merry Christmas, you're all fired. No, sorry, I don't fire anybody. Yeah, I like to have my worst quality, also my best quality. So my altruism makes me a beautiful human being. That doesn't lend itself to profitability. So when you end up having a bunch of employees, being personal friends and things and everything is great in being like a team and everything like that, having employees that you're friends with ends up inevitably leading to complacency. Sometimes, unless you don't have accountabilities. I mean, there's been dozens of employees at the farm. I'm gonna be a mushroom farmer, this is so cool. And then show up like 2 weeks after, you know, and then be like watching everybody like, what you doing? We're picking mushrooms. Oh, I picked mushrooms yesterday. We pick them 7 days a week. In the summertime, I pick twice a day. I'll pick chestnuts twice a day. So when starting a farm, also think about what market that you want to be in. What is your market in your area? Are there thriving farmers markets? Are there restaurants that want demand? Cold call. You know, I started trying to sell to great big wholesalers from the start. You'll never get a contract. And so it's a lot of money up front. And unless you have value adds being made, I wouldn't have gone wholesale at first. I would have stuck to restaurants and farmers markets to get people out on that. But look at the issues that might come with exponential demand. You know, there wasn't anyone producing mushrooms, you know, that first year. And so everybody called and you wanted to have everyone have mushrooms. And then, but you don't know how to cultivate yet. And so you're trying to like throw money and things at that. Take it slow, let it, you know, form organically. A high quality product will always sell, no matter what you're cultivating. And getting your mindset around the differences I see a lot of people when they're foraging and IDing or talking about mushrooms is that we have this pre-set mindset, like one being afraid of them, is putting in a set of values or expectations of a mushroom acting like a plant and speaking about it as a plant. And there's a whole philosophy behind that. It's hard to think, you know, I don't do kits. I'm on the phone. I don't know, I got that block from you. I left it out on my lawn in the sun and, you know, it didn't fruit any mushrooms. I want my money back. This is after an hour on the phone. I am doing a log demo next week with shiitake logs because I had some. And I got the bit from North Spore, you know, where I can put it on a grinder and do ding, 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 ding. Do the logs, do you have that bit? Boy, that makes it fun, don't it? Right, and you get the plunger thing too. Here's a trick I've been telling people that aren't on the directions a lot. I made a whole bunch in the beginning. I made a couple of hundred. And at that time, it was really like, hey, you're bringing fresh firewood from 3 different states. Obviously, it wasn't infected with some sort of, you know, like ash, you know, ash borer, whatever the thing is, friggin' up ash trees, ash borer. And so I pasteurized all the logs, which caused them all to split. And I inoculated them anyway, and kind of threw them out in a ditch, and they fruited in exactly a year. But I had also noticed on the ones that weren't, all the wax, I used beeswax from a local bee, and all the wax had cracked, and chipmunks and birds and stuff went and picked up the wax. I'm like, man, for every pound of wax, I add 1 tablespoon of mineral oil. Mineral oil. Because one, it also makes like the beeswax more translucent, okay? Also keeps it pliable so it doesn't crack in the winter. I also wax and inoculate the ends. I do, because I want to see the mycelium growing. And I also want to keep the moisture inside of that log. So why leave the both big opening ends at the end? So that all kinds of fungus and all kinds of respiration can happen. Well, I want to fruit via the wick tech. The wick tech, yeah, I gotta, by the stream, and I'm gonna prop it up, and it'll suck water up, and it'll have it for the mushrooms. So I don't want to wax the bottom. I'm like, again, it's not a stalk of celery that you're putting into blue water, and the celery turns blue. Okay, mushrooms, the fruit, and this happens indoors a lot, and with shiitakes, is that their mycelium doesn't necessarily want to put out a fruit body. Especially mushroom cultivation, it is fruiting as a self-defense mechanism. Because you put in red oak sawdust, right? You put in like 61% moisture, right? Perfect. Gave it all kinds of, soy hulls, right? Which are only 12 to 14% crude protein, which is exactly the same as wheat middlings, which is what I used for 4.5 years. But the yields are 43% more on soy. Soy is a peptone protein. Peptone protein, blood meal, bone meal, but in the garden, derived from animal bones. Mushrooms being more animal-like than plant-like, I hypothesize that they have an easier ability to convert peptone protein from soy into mushroom protein. That's the only difference. I have no idea. I'm a multidisciplinary observationist. God, I had like 3 points. I was wrapping it up. Shit. 30 seconds ago. Where was I? Everybody.
Money, time.
Which one?
Money, time, how much money?
Oh, Jesus, you're like 3 pages ago.
Sealing the end of the logs.
Thank you. Okay, you used a chainsaw to cut the damn log down, so now you want to fruit it, right? Can you take that chainsaw and maybe cut that end inch off the log once it's fully colonized in a year, and then wick it? When you're putting that log in water and soaking it overnight, what you're doing is mimicking a cold fall night. I had 2 offices that at any given time had 1,500 bags of Pholiota adiposa, chestnut mushrooms, that were incubating. And I'd incubate them like 55 days or so. Well, the radiant heat system screwed up, and the zone had changed with a broken thing, and it got to 89 degrees in that office. And I'm like, uh-oh. Well, it's 40 degrees outside. So I'm gonna open up all the windows because the substrate inside of the bag was at 98 degrees. At 104, mycelium starts dying. Yeah, and I live there, so I walk back and forth. 3 days after I closed those windows and fixed the heat, I looked, and I'm like, there are 1,500 bags of chestnuts in this office right now, pinning. I'm like, why the hell? Well, it also happened to be in the fall. In the fall, on super punky birch, is Pholiota squarosa and Pholiota squarozoides. Also Pholiota flamans and Ariovella. And I'm like, wow, it was a really cold fall night last night. See, while they're incubating, they're like, yummy, yummy, you gave me this food, the wood's broken down, this is cool, I'm eating away. I'm in a really tiny tree. Crap. Well, what am I gonna do now? Well, I better produce a fruit body that has spores so that I can continue to live further on. As soon as conditions are right, I'm gonna produce a fruit body. Or 2 days from now, I'm gonna do it inside of this damn bag anyway and look all gnarly. Which you might want for reishi, so you don't have billions of spores and you just have the antlers and things. Leads you into wild mushrooms, like if it's a drought, chicken of the woods. Chicken of the woods is one that doesn't follow any sort of model, and it'll fruit on dead substrates during a drought really, really well because it's super stressed out because that log is getting drier and drier. So, yeah.
As a large-scale production and cultivator, do you produce your own spores as well, or do you buy in from other companies that are like that?
Right now, I do profitability through collaboration. So I generate blocks. With spawn, I purchase from Maine Stem. They have the same genetics that are great, that are new. They also have a bunch of genetics that I grew for 8 years from Northwest Mycological. I ran normal red oak sawdust and soybean hulls, but I got to get 60,000 pounds of each to get it. Sawdust, raw sawdust has got to be, well aerated, but also dry at the same time, so that variable. So I get pellets now because now they're available if I want to run those. 2 of my mushroom grow rooms are leased to other mushroom growers. If you're doing a small scale, like a garage or a basement, in things where you're maybe running 10 to 20, maybe 50 bags a week, it's cost effective to maybe make your own spawn. Anything over maybe $5 a month, it's a dedicated full-time thing. Because 7-pound bag, I'll inoculate 100 bags with it. About 33 grams a bag. I don't weigh anything out, hand pour, but I did the math on it. I've hand poured over 500,000 bags. So your muscle memory gets pretty good. Well, if the spawn's contaminated, I now just contaminated 100 bags. So now I have that 12 weeks of capital, right? Now I have an entire week that at that end of 12 weeks, I'm not gonna get paid for because they didn't fruit a mushroom. I had 3 years where I lost 1,000 bags a week. First 2 years of business, I lost $3,000 a week trying to figure out king oysters. Yeah. Anyone wants to know king oysters? You don't want to pay my consultant fee, but I'll tell you what they need. Yeah. Variable needs of different species. Give them what they want outside.
And my other question is, do you see sometime along in the future companies owning genetic rights to certain mushrooms? Similar to how they do in flowers or something?
No. I certainly hope not. No. People will try to. People will try to. Hey, I generated this in a lab. I'm speeding up Mother Nature by 200,000 years. Awesome. It's going to be a gentleman's, it's always had been, because you had a group of people. You had people in Asia cultivating mushrooms for a long time, France cultivating for a long time. This country, and especially mushrooms, you had a group about 55 years ago that had learned it, kept all the information close, and then it comes into my range, which is a little over a decade, and you have North Spore, Maine Stem, sequential years after that, and then boom, tons of mushroom growers as the industry expands. It was $2 to $6 billion a year in a decade, that sort of thing. Because say I bought a genetic from somebody and it's a G1 spawn, or I grab a master, well, I can clone it and now I have that genetic. There's no legal recourse. Well, how would there be a legal recourse? It's hey, that's an oak tree out there, that's mine. So every oak tree that's out there, if you plant an oak tree, you gotta give me money for that oak tree. No, I don't think genetics like that. What happens is that things get a lot muddy. Look at cannabis industry. Multiple genetics. What you're gonna see cannabis industry is you're gonna see multiple genetics coming back in. I don't need 39% THC, I always smoke some more weed, but I'd like it to last more than 15 minutes and have CBD and CBG and CBN in it maybe again. That's the same ideas. I did a lot of consulting with psychotropic mushroom companies. I've always said, I don't cultivate them, there's no money in it. I've been saying it for 13 years. Well, the bottom falls out of the industry, so you want to diversify, and I teach people how to do reishi and turkey tail and lion's mane to diversify. Because I'll refer to medicinal mushrooms as supplements a lot, because again, we think about medicine here in Western civilization as I went to the human mechanic that fixed my broken arm. Where mushrooms are basically Eastern medicine about the body's healing. We haven't evolved enough yet to live just on corn syrup. I lived 4 months on peanut butter M&Ms once. Because of the peanut butter, the protein in it. I'm not stupid. It's giving, and here we don't have enough vitamin D. And it's not a vitamin, I know, but it's one of those things you need. And most people have a deficiency of it, have all the other stuff do what it's supposed to do. So I will always say it for psychotropics, I'll say it for regular mushrooms, they work for some people some of the time. Psychotropics, they're a hammer. Some jobs need a big hammer. Some jobs need a small hammer. Sometimes you build the house once. Sometimes you're a shitty carpenter and have to keep building the house over and over again. But you need to build it. And what I worry about is like too many things being modified in regards to like modifying the mushroom and how it's grown to yield well in an indoor setting. If mushrooms get treated that way, they'll teach a person a lesson. And there's too much individual variability and not enough homogenization. For example, I'm not gonna eat a candy bar, like a 3.5 grams of like a penis envy or something, and go to a concert, because last time I did that, my goddamn dog wouldn't text me back for like 4 hours, you know what I mean? So what do you need for which genetic that you've got? And I found that when I'm educating people, 3 years ago, like I started openly talking about neurodiversity. I hire kids with autism. I hire kids on spectrum because I'm sick of them being called dumb. I had a customer once said that I was the opposite of nonverbal ADHD, nonverbal autism. I was the opposite. She also asked me 500 times like how I could remember all the Latin names. I made up a different joke every time, like I'm making these up. Anything. And I finally got to the back, I'm like, it's probably because of the autism. I said, tomorrow's discussion's on trains. And I kind of went from there on it. Again, now I just went down the trap again. I know I'm supposed to finish up. Did I answer a question? Did I answer it? God, it was a bunch of points. Come tell me, yeah, we can chat. Yeah, go ahead.
Do you have any suggestion on how to store mushrooms?
How to store them in the woods?
I live off grid.
You live off grid?
Or I'm trying to see if I'm living off grid.
Yeah, so use your earth sink. Okay, so I would do like an earth shed, like a what do they call them? They put carrots and potatoes in there. Like a root cellar, but you've got to be careful because of the extra moisture in a root cellar. Okay, you need to have that airflow going through. I'd recommend putting down like a crushed gravel too so that there's drainage as well. Because anything over 34 and they're going to produce those spores, you're going to lose your shelf life. And then, the faster the air going in, like if you can utilize the air, or do you have any like any on property like water sources?
Streams.
You do have a stream. If it's a fast moving stream, you can do a passive hydroelectric, but you have the hydro power a pump, and that pump cycles cold water from the stream, and you could run on your walls to get that free from downstream, have that run the pump. One pump is like 40 watts. And you could run that radiant heat because you got the cold coming up, the heat's gonna rise. So you kind of push that heat down and evacuate it, but you're gonna get a lot of condensation, and that's where your drainage goes. So cold as you can while dry as you can, which is odd because you want the mushrooms to stay wet, right? Mushrooms, when harvested, do need to respirate. They do need to breathe. It's almost like having a bad apple in the thing. Yeah.
Thank you for looking into it.
Solar dryer. A solar dryer. So you can do it, you can build like a hot water heater using black PVC pipe on a roof. But if you do like a greenhouse with like plastic, have that heat coming through, geo-air to move that air, have your sides, and then use the sun, get that super hot but moving air, and then you could dry shiitakes in a day. The problem is on off-grid is that as the night changes and it gets colder, they're gonna wanna recondense again. But if you're blowing that fresh air from underground, that ends up being dry and fast, you can get past that because you want them to crisp. I call it cool drying. So I call it cool drying because I put like 180 pounds in at a time, and I cool it whatever outdoor air is. I like to do it under 100 degrees or under 120. Because when drying a cultivated mushroom or any mushroom at all, If you're drying it like 140 to 160, you're now in pasteurization temperatures, and technically you're kind of cooking it. 160 to 212, super pasteurization. Now you're really cooking it. Over 200, you're really cooking it. Matsutakis, dried at 170 to 190, turn dark, dark brown. All the funkiness goes away. The cinnamon comes out, and it's dark chocolate. Yeah, so maybe you wanted to do that. I think for freshness, to preserve the highest quality of fresh mushroom dried would be to freeze dry. However, it's not that cost effective on a small scale at all. But if you've got, say you're gonna have a whole lot of shiitakes at once, dried shiitakes sell, but how can you get it to dry? Because being off grid, if you don't have that, the ability to like store it super cold all at once or have them dried overnight using mechanical, use what you've got, and you've got the sun and that sort of thing. A lot of passive ways to do it that aren't that expensive.